There's a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello BookTube, I'm Sean the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel and another Friday Reads. And this is the second Friday Reads in a row that I'm filming on Thursday night because I've got other pressing matters to do on Friday. I need a shave. I need a haircut. Look how long my hair is. I need more makeup. I need a fancier blouse than this, but I am just not in the right headspace to gussy myself up for this really brief little chat to you for this week's Friday Reads. I mainly want to let you enjoy the mystery guests. That'll be coming up soon, and I'm not ready. We as a family are not ready to just talk publicly in a broadcast type of context about Dad's condition, but you basically can surmise that things aren't great. But I'm not going to say any more than that, and it's a very emotionally draining and intense time for everyone, and that's all I will say. So it has definitely, all of that takes, of course, it doesn't even need to be said, takes precedence over my reading life. I have done some reading this week, but I'm finding that all the emotional part of it is often, it's kind of zoning me out where I have the time to pick up a book, but I don't have the inclination because I'm preoccupied, and that's happening more and more, and that's just life. It's just life. But I have done some reading, and I'll tell you about a little bit of it in a minute. So that's it for personal update. In terms of bookish stuff, I'm not able to participate in any readathons. I'm going to have to completely skip the Irish readathon and Dewithon this year, which is too bad, but there's no law against me reading Irish and Welsh books later on this year, is there? So, and in fact, you know what? With all of my constipated current reads folder, so it's like it's 48 books now. Here's one that I started for the Irish Readathon last year. I haven't picked up in probably 6 months, and it's probably going to be a life-changing read once I focus on it and finish it. This collection of essays, Becoming a Woman Poet, A Journey with Two Maps by Eavan Boland. I've read an essay and a half, I think, and they just are incredible. The first essay, A Journey with Two Maps, is one of the most incredible works of memoir writing, one of the most incredible essays I have ever read. So I will get back to this. Maybe I will focus on it more in the month of March, the Irish Readathon, a year later, but I don't think I'm going to finish it. It's definitely a book that repays a very slow read, but I haven't picked it up in 6 months. It shouldn't be that slow, Sean, so I'll get it all sorted out eventually, but that's probably... Oh, and I'm still listening to the audiobook text combo read of Graham Norton's novel Homestretch, which I'm enjoying. Without further ado, I'm so excited to show you this mystery guest. This spot was taped in my house using my fancy new lights a few weeks ago, and so some of you, if you've been paying really, really close attention, and why would you pay such close attention to what I've talked about in some recent Friday Reads, you won't be particularly surprised. Here it is. And today's mystery guest is Christy Jordan Fenton, who is traveling now and lives in St. John's... That's not right.
Fort St. John.
Who lives in Fort St. John, BC, in the territory of the Dunaza, and she's in Saskatoon right now, so we have just had the most stimulating chit-chat about all things bookish, and now we're going to let you watch some of it. Christy is the co-author, along with her late mother-in-law, of Fatty Legs, A True Story. I had a bite-sized book chat about this. Christy's been on my channel before talking a little bit about it, and she co-authored it with her late mother-in-law, Margaret Uliman Pokiak Fenton. It's a wonderful, what would you say, YA or?
Middle grade.
Middle grade story about Margaret Uliman's childhood experience at residential school. Welcome.
Oh, well, I'm glad to be here.
Your hair's fabulous. I wish I
Thank
had
you.
thought to dye mine pink too. If you don't mind, tell us what you're doing traveling around the country.
Oh, I am doing mostly school visits. So I'm 1 week into a month on the road. and traveling all across the prairies as far over as Winnipeg and visiting with schools in cities, in Indigenous communities, all over the place.
And what is your topic, or what are you presenting about or doing workshops on?
I'm mostly speaking about Margaret and about Fatty Legs and her resilience when she was at residential school, and speaking from a strengths-based place on how Indigenous children who went to residential school were using cultural upbringing and traditions to be their own heroes to survive through that.
I love that, and I've never heard that phrase, strength-based way.
Yes.
Can you riff on that for a minute or two? I love the sound of that.
Yeah, well, even when I worked on Fatty Legs, I very much had my children in mind, and I didn't want them to just hear colonial history from colonizers, where even if the colonizers, everything they did is really, really bad, they're still winning all the time, then it's still a story of supremacy. So I wanted my children to be able to read about their grandma and someone from their culture and have a hero to look up to. So when I talk about residential school through the lens of Margaret's stories, I do that from a way of how heroic she was being her own hero every day.
Margaret Uliman, Okiak Fenton, she was a Inuvialuit girl, and so where did she grow up?
She grew up on Banks Island, which is still another 2.5-hour plane ride from Inuvik. I frequently speak with Inuit children across Canada. Sometimes I get to go visit them, but a lot of times it is through Zoom. And I don't think I have yet to meet an Inuit class that did not also think she grew up really far north.
So very, very far north. And this
Yes.
is a wonderfully illustrated story with actual photographs as well.
Yes, the illustrations were done by Liz Amini Holmes,
thank you.
phenomenal artist.
Yeah, thank you. It's a wonderful book that you must get your hands on. And you are, I'm not sure what you're not doing. You're on this kind of Western Canadian tour.
Yes.
Doing kind of education and workshops on this book and all the topics it raises. But you're also a writer.
Yes.
In your own right. And what's coming down the pipe?
I have recently recompleted. I completed a while ago, but I'm still revising a novel, Horse Shit, Stilettos, and Rosin. And
I love the title. What was the last word?
Rosin.
What's that?
Rosin is like the same stuff you would put on a bow for like playing violin, but it's also used by cowboys who ride rough stock.
So it's the best title I've heard in quite some time. Can you repeat the full title one more time?
Yes, Horse Shit, Stilettos, and Rosin. So it's a later life coming of age story about a woman who is kind of trying to rough it in the Canadian outbacks a bit in a boom town. And she is riding rough stock. She is a bronc rider and also an exotic dancer. And she's on this like very fast downward spiral. It's interwoven with some other characters that she meets. So there's a Vietnam veteran who has not really ever gotten over that experience. There is a wealthy widow who isn't exactly what she comes across as, and she gets more likable as time goes on. And a Métis former showman who also has quite a extensive back history, and a Blackfoot Dene stunt rider. Through the way that each of the other characters navigates their own trauma and how they make a life for themselves or don't, kind of lays out the choices that the main character is going to have ahead of her, and if she's going to survive herself or not.
My God, it sounds amazing. So when will I be able to read it?
Well, I'm trying to find an agent right now. Okay. Apparently moving from writing for children to writing to adults isn't as easy as I thought it was going to be industry-wise, but hopefully I will find an agent soon. And yeah, I'm thinking there's a few Canadian publishers that are open now or opening soon that are just straight open to submit to. So I'm going to submit there, and hopefully we'll see.
Good luck. That synopsis sounds amazing.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wanted to work with a bit of a saga, I guess, but also I wanted to work intergenerationally, but also cross-culturally, because my story's fairly different, my own story, but my healing in my late stage coming of age. It was not in a cultural silo by any means. So wanted to write a little bit and reflect that, and also include a lot of parts of Canadian history that maybe haven't made it into books before.
Interesting. And so does the story go back into history as well?
It does. So it's non-linear and multiple point of view. So not just the main character. The main character gets the most wordage, I guess, but also we're seeing things through other eyes, and even the same incidents in history, but through different eyes, so that maybe what we thought was happening from the other side, we get more information and it wasn't how we thought.
Well, I'm pre-booking you to come on when it's ready, and we'll talk about your debut novel for adults.
Oh, I look forward to it.
That's wonderful. And what have you been reading recently, Christy?
Oh, I just finished Drew Hayden Taylor's Cold. Very
hot off
excited
the
about
press.
it. Oh, I got it the day it came out. Oh, it's phenomenal. It's a Wendigo story. It doesn't start off where you would think it is a Wendigo story. When I started reading it, I thought it was going one direction, and I don't want to give any spoilers, but he does something a little ways in where you're like, that is not going where I thought it was, and it totally changes. It manages to remain very humorous. It's not scary. It's just genius the way that he's woven it together. I would classify it as literary fiction, but it reads very much like commercial. Could not put it down.
Now, for people outside Canada that don't know who he is, can you tell us a little bit about who Drew Hayden Taylor?
Oh, yeah. Drew Hayden Taylor is Anishinaabe from Curve Lake, which is a reserve in Ontario. Mm-hmm. He has written many books, both nonfiction and fiction. Cold is obviously a fiction book. Also many plays, hosted TV shows, done documentaries. Yeah. He's just absolutely phenomenal. Yeah. Very, very funny. He's just one of my favorite writers.
I have one book of his. It's Motorcycles
and Sweetgrass.
Motorcycles and Sweetgrass on my shelf, beckoning to me. So, and now, is it a spoiler to say why it's called Cold?
Oh, trying to think how I could put that. Well, Cold has to do with the Wendigo, I guess.
Okay.
So
leave it at that.
Yes, I will say for anybody who really loves Indigenous literature, it's a real treat to read because he finds these very organic ways to give shout outs to lots of great Indigenous titles.
Yeah.
And there's even a reference to anybody who follows him on Twitter, now X, or knows him at all, knows he goes on and on a lot about butter tarts, but butter tarts with raisins in them. So
okay.
The butter tarts with raisins even make a cameo in the story. It's just very clever.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it's a wonderful book. Highly recommend, whether you like literary fiction or commercial fiction or Indigenous literature, or you don't like Indigenous literature. I don't know why anybody wouldn't, but it's just easy read for anybody. Very entertaining.
Wonderful. And what else?
I recently finished as well A Council of Dolls.
And I'm going to start it tomorrow.
Yes,
so.
I think it was around here.
Yeah.
That is Mona Susan Power.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just my favorite kind of book because it is more of a saga and it's multi-generational, also intergenerational. And a lot of it really centers around Indian boarding school, which is the same as Indian residential school in the States. But it doesn't just talk about what happens at the schools. It branches way out to the far-reaching ramifications of all the family members and the generations. And it's told with the most unique narrative. It's all strung together through dolls, in a sense. I just love there's one character in the book that when you hear the narration from one generation, you think, what an awful, awful character this is. But then you hear from a generation before, and you can see where that character is on that trajectory, but he's a really likable character. And I just love how cleverly she did that. I love when narratives get flipped and you see the other perspectives, and it's just beautiful.
And isn't it a debut?
I believe it is.
Yeah, so
it's
very impressive.
Powerful. Yes.
Yeah. Well, Heidi of My Reading Life and I are starting our buddy read of it tomorrow. I don't know when anybody will see this video, but I'm even more excited to dive in tomorrow.
It's a great novel. It really is. Yeah. I just finished Dream Wheels, Richard Wagamese.
Yes, you were, and I wasn't familiar with that one. That's an early one. Tell us a little bit about that one.
It is about a bull rider who gets really banged up, career-ending, debilitating injuries, and it follows two narratives. So the other POV is the as a young Black boy who his mom is in an abusive relationship. He's he's had a hard life, and he ends up in some trouble with the law. It's organized that after he gets out of jail, that he will go to stay with this rodeo cowboy and his family, and they have a working ranch, but also a bit of a rodeo school there. And so the boy and the rodeo cowboy start to connect. There's a lot of friction at first when they connect, but the boy has some skills in working on vehicles, and the rodeo cowboy is trying to fix up the old truck that the family used for many generations to travel to rodeos. But because of his disability and not having all the know-how, he doesn't know exactly how to get around some of these ways to fix the truck. And the young boy wants to learn how to ride bulls. And here's this man with all this expertise in bull riding. And so they come together, and the fixing up the truck is really quite a bit of a metaphor to how we preserve stories and heal intergenerationally, but also celebrate intergenerationally what we've gone through together. And this boy and this man working on the truck is this great healing that happens between the families. And so it's a great book.
Christy and I were talking books for an hour before we turned the recorder on. So I now think I have kind of a sense of what a Christy book would be like. So it's that intercultural cast of characters that are from many different cultures.
Yes.
That is reflected in how the novel that you're about to get published.
Yes.
It's also like that, and this Wagamese book sounds like that. And
yeah, we were talking earlier, since we are in Saskatoon, Guy Vanderhaeghe, The Englishman's Boy, was one of those books in your life. You maybe read 5 books in your lives that totally change your life, and that was one for me.
Okay, and why?
So,
why was it such a powerful book in your life?
Oh, it took place across different eras, but connected eras, but across different eras, cultural backgrounds, the history. I've always really loved history, but it wasn't just the factual history. It was the feeling and the emotion of the history, just so vivid, and the consequences of history and the decisions that are made, or the things that we get dragged into even sometimes, how those affect us later in life and then affect those around us. Oh, it was just a brilliant book. One of my top 10 for sure.
Wow. Well, you've put a lot of writers and books back on my radar, so that's fabulous. And in fact, Christy has come up with a wonderful idea. She comes to Saskatoon at least once a year, maybe more often than that.
A little bit more than
and,
that, yeah.
Tell us your idea for a series on my channel.
Yes, so, hit that like button if you want to see this. But I would love to do what's on Sean's bookshelves. Sitting here for an hour, and it's just we've just jumped from book to book to book, seeing a lot of my favorites on the shelves, and makes me think of them. It's like old friends I once knew. Yeah, so I think it would be a great show.
I love that idea, and you haven't even seen the bulk of my library yet. So.
Yeah, I'm liking what I see so far.
That's right. Christy, thank you so much. This was absolutely wonderful.
Oh, well, thank you.
We just connected. We just got along like a house on fire. And if the house had been on fire, we would have grabbed all the books before we left. We're just 2 book maniacs, just delighting in being surrounded by and talking about nothing but books for several hours. I've only managed to get 1 video posted this week, so I will tell you about it. And I'm thinking, I don't want to go back to all that cut and paste stuff with all the labels and stuff. But yet I enjoyed showing you the little excerpts, because I think that the little excerpts, the moments of brilliance or hilarity that I feature in the old style of talking about weekly highlights, I think they pack more of a punch than me just kind of telling you what the videos are about. So I might start doing that again, but not this week. I don't have time. So the only video I've managed to post this week since my last Friday reads was a doozy. It was another episode of Zooming In with Trevor of the Mooks and the Gripes podcast. And we talked about the art and science of reading, and it's a wonderful chat. It was a real kind of mind meld type of chat. So do check that out if you're interested. I want to try to explain something that I've been toying with doing, and I've been doing it a little bit in earlier weeks, but didn't have enough time to get into it to have anything to talk about. But this week, in a more concentrated fashion, I wasn't necessarily in the right headspace to read 10 pages of any book, but a briefer snippet of a book appealed to me. And so I picked, kind of at random, 4 books that have been on my current reads, none of which 3 out of the 4 I hadn't picked up in more than 3 months, maybe more than 5 months, some of them. One of them I had dipped into more recently, and I just decided to read 2, maximum 3, like 2.5 pages. If it spilled over to finish the chapter or something on the next page, it would be 2.5 pages. But usually it was just 2 pages on the left side. When you open the book, the page on the left and the page on the right, and that's all I would read that day. And I do them bang, bang, bang. So the books are the Finnish novel about World War II, Väinö Linna's Unknown Soldiers. Do you remember ever me talking about this book? Translated from the Finnish by Liesl Yamaguchi. I started it for War on BookTube, or whatever that readathon was last spring. I think it was in the spring. And I'm now on page 43, but I read about 6 pages of it in the last week. 2 pages a day, and then I found that I really thought about what was on those 2 pages deeply for the next 24 hours until I picked up the book again. It's incredible. So this is at the very opening of I don't think it was World War II yet. It was Russia's second war with Finland before became World War II, and a group of Finnish soldiers. Really strong characters. And one of the reasons I can dive back into this book after a long absence is I have been consciously making a list of characters with descriptions of their personalities and anything else about them, like are they a major or a private or whatever. The first time I meet them in the book, so that I can, who is this Leitonen or whatever, and I've got a reference guide. So that was really successful with this book. Another one that it's been months since I picked it up, is Antonia White's Frost in May, and I did the same thing. I read about 6 pages and just fell right back into the book. And again, I just found that those 2-page snippets of story, they were something that I carried in my imagination, and I found myself thinking about it during the day whenever I wasn't thinking about more pressing stuff going on in my personal life. I kept it alive in my mind and was eager to read the next 2 pages the next night. This is about a British girl. Is it? It's not Irish, is it? I can't remember, but Britain anyway. Nanda, she's the daughter of a Catholic convert, and she, at the age of 9 or something, she enters a convent. And very vivid and beautiful writing and deep character work. My God, it's been 6 to 8 months since I picked this up, and I was really enjoying it, but I'm just overwhelmed with books that I pretend to be reading, and this was one that has been sitting there collecting dust. It's been so long, and that is Paul Takes the Form of a Mortal Girl by Andrea Lawler. I started reading it for Pride Month, maybe in June, or was it something else earlier in the year? And I'm on page 28, but I read from page 22 to 28, or something like that, in the last week. I have picked up the threads of this story, and I've been thinking about it a lot, based on reading those 6 to 8 pages. And finally, the one that I started in January was my second novel, not his second novel, but my second novel by Peter Benson. I believe it's his most recent, Kidnap Fury of the Smoking Lovers. I'm on page 24, and I read 6 to 8 of those pages in the last week, and it had been probably a month since I picked it up. And those 6 or 8 pages I read this week have gotten me back into the Peter Benson, the Peter Benson aura, or I'm seduced by it in a way that I wasn't necessarily seduced by the first 15 pages that I read maybe in one sitting. And so I'm really back in this, so I want to keep up with it, but my life is not my own right now, so who knows how long it will take. But again, I just wanted to report on the experiment of keeping 4 books alive in my consciousness when I wasn't, for all kinds of reasons that you already know about. I wasn't able to read very much of them, but reading that little bit of them day by day, it was a wonderful experiment. I'm going to keep doing it until I've cleared all 48 books off my current reads. This is the book that I'm ready to check in on for the first time now that I've read about 24 pages. This was the first one on my, if I don't read these books in 2024, I have to unhaul them video, Cormorant Lake by Faith Merino. And I'm quite enjoying it. Published in 2021. It was on my most anticipated books of 2021. I have no idea why. It's a debut novel, I'm pretty sure, and never heard of the author, but now that I'm 25 pages in, I'm enjoying it. So it is, as I probably explained in early January, this young woman, her roommate was neglecting her kids. And so after it got to like a crisis level of neglect, she took the girls and went back to her mother's, from whom she had been estranged for like a decade or something. And she's planning on raising them with her mother or at her mother's place. And her mother's a real character. And I don't know what happened between the mother and daughter. Obviously, I don't know what's going to happen with I think the natural mother of these two girls was a drug addict and just woefully, neglectful of her kids. So who knows? I'm sure that the story is not going to be all happiness and bliss from here on in, but I'm enjoying the writing, intrigued by the storyline, and eager to keep on. I have bowed out of some of my buddy reads and other reading commitments, but one that I'm hoping to honor and hope to do in March is there's going to be a Zoom discussion of this Edith Wharton novella, Summer, which will be a great way to warm up now that the temperature's gotten. We've had a blast of winter again this week. Today, -7, but earlier in the week, -25. And this is for a group discussion with Dorian and James and Chris of the Book Cougars. We had planned to do the third iteration, the third annual Marian Engel colloquy, and none of us liked that short story collection, so I said, and nobody really thought, let's not bother trying another one of her books. Let's do something different. And so we picked this one. And Edith Wharton, you can't go wrong. I've heard nothing but good things about it. And I'm going to get started on that. That's what I got for this week. Hope you're all doing well. Thanks for watching.